Pnawn da, croeso in webinar. If you can let me know if you can hear me by writing in the chat pane. Okay, I think we've got sound. So this afternoon we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to find out about digital literacy and we're going to share some ideas. So if you could use the chat pane to let us know how you are interacting with digital literacy and your learners. And if you have any questions, please use the chat panes. We've been warmly welcomed here all afternoon by Neath Port Talbot Adult Community Learning, by Michelle Trigg and Joe Griffin. So Joe, if we could ask you, can you tell us a little bit about Neath Port Talbot ACL and your digital literacy journey?
A year ago, we started to introduce iPads mainly into our beginners literacy program. What we found were we had lots of learners there that weren't interacting at all with IT. They were also quite phobic in some cases, so we introduced iPads as a slightly less threatening tool. We mainly use those for helping them to understand how they might use literacy and numeracy apps for learning. We also actually gave them an iPad course alongside this that was aimed specifically at people with literacy and numeracy difficulties. The aim being to help them to use tools. For instance, we use things like iPad apps for phonics, helping them to get to grips with maths language, simple things like the names of shapes, etc. And then we help them to be able to download those via the course that taught them the tools, and then to understand the purpose of them from a learning point of view within the main literacy or numeracy programme. That's now evolved so that lots more of those learners are using lots of smart devices, Android and also iPads, to be able to use those tools independently at home and progress their own learning at their own pace.
Excellent, thank you, Joe. And we know that you've worked out in satellite centres both with internet and without internet, and you've managed to work with what you've had and had some very successful classes. So I'd also like to introduce you to Michelle Trigg, who also works in Neath Port Talbot ACL and is currently, well, she's going to tell us what she's delivering at the moment. So welcome, Michelle. Can you tell us what you teach in Neath Port Talbot ACL?
Hi, I teach and assess the childcare programme, which includes the introduction to childcare right up to QCF level 2 and 3.
So we've heard from Jo about how she works with some pre-entry and entry-level learners, but can you tell us how you've embedded digital literacy into your childcare classes, please?
We embed digital literacy in all our delivery. The learners take part in various activities using different devices. I have started introducing various tools with the learners, which the learners are using. The learners are using Padlet and today's Meet as a way of collaborating and sharing information. Throughout the childcare programme, the learners complete a number of tasks with embedded use of digital literacy skills. The units are planned so that the learners complete some tasks through the use of technologies. This includes researching online, collaborating and sharing information to complete the tasks. The learners also have to present one task through digital technology. This allows the learners opportunity to develop digital literacy skills without even knowing they're doing it.
That sounds fantastic, Michelle. And as I know you, I know that 6 months ago, you weren't doing this at all. You sat the digital literacy practitioners yourself, and then you've willingly embedded this into your classes. But there must have been some challenging things. So what have the challenging things been about embedding digital literacy in ACL?
It can be challenging when trying to get your head around embedding digital literacy. The most challenging factor was getting the learners to understand. Learners with low-level IT skills and little understanding were anxious and feared using electronic devices. It's about their competencies and understanding. As digital literacy goes beyond normal IT functioning skills, some learners may not possess these. So embedding digital literacy into the delivery can be hard to start, especially as the learners have different skill levels.
But it sounds from what you said that you have managed to overcome this. So how have you done that?
To overcome this, I paired the learners according to their ability during group work. So by pairing up a more competent learner with a learner showing lower level skills, their competence increased. Once the learners became more competent, they start to work individually. So when I introduced the learners to new tools such as a Padlet, I set it up beforehand. This then the learners are able to get a feel of how it works, and in time we're able to set up their own Padlet. I allowed the learners to use the technologies of their choice. One learner brought her personal iPad in. She felt more comfortable using this. I also ensure I use a wide range of teaching strategies and activities that accommodate the needs of learners with diverse learning styles and abilities. This allows all learners to participate regardless of their ability. It is important that the delivery is relevant for the learners. Good planning helps support the embedding of digital literacy. You cannot not expect learners to use complex tools when they have low-level skills. Therefore, assessing learners' abilities is important when planning delivery.
Actually, I think what you've just said there, Michelle, sums it all up really. It's relevance, it's planning, and it's about good assessment at all stages and just being there for your learners and helping them alongside their journey as well. Please remember to type in the chat pane. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, there does seem to be some fear with digital literacy. Practice, 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 definitely. Have you spelt practice right? We'll let the communication experts judge that one. Okay, so this is time for you to take part again. I can see many of you have found your pen tools and the different colours. So how confident are you? If you could mark on the line how confident you feel in delivering digital literacy to your learners. We've heard from Jo and we've heard from Michelle where they are, and now we'd like you to mark. So we've got some people that have marked, or some in the middle. We've got a few not feeling very confident with us today, so we're hoping during the webinar you will gain in confidence yourself, you'll gain some ideas. If you are feeling confident, tell us, why are you confident? What is it you are doing with your learners that is making you feel confident? Thank you, Wendy. We've had practice with an S is a verb, practice with a C is a noun. Brilliant. See, it's all about learning. Right, I can think it is fair to say that with us today we have the full range of people starting on their digital literacy journey to those that are feeling very confident. Michelle did, we'd like to pair you up. So if you are one of those confident learners, please feel free to share your ideas. If you're not feeling very confident, sit back and listen and ask a question and join in at your leisure today. So we're going to move on and say, where did it all start? What is the background? Why are we where we are now? We know we're living in a digital age. We also know that the pace of change in technology is exponential. The skills that our young people and adults need in order to find and stay in employment have changed, and many employers consider digital literacy skills as being very, very important. So the 2012 Review of Qualifications said the content of Essential Skills Wales ICT qualifications was found to be out of date and should be replaced by new Essential Skills Wales qualifications in digital literacy, covering the IT skills required for general learning, work and adult life. And that has in fact taken place already. And since September 2015, we've had the essential digital literacy skills. We've also had the digital literacy element in the Welsh Baccalaureate, and we have essential skills for work and life qualifications, which are bite-sized chunks of learning. So we're going to consider that learning, and we're going to consider the different elements in digital literacy during the next half an hour or so. Just want to mention at this point, digital competency. If you read the review of curriculum by Professor Donaldson, you'll know that over the next couple of years, the compulsory sector are introducing the digital competency framework as part of their curriculum. We haven't got time to consider this in detail, but it might be something that you need to look at, particularly if, like Michelle, you are delivering to childcare learners, because you will have young people coming through into your classes that have been going through a digital competency framework. So that's a little bit of homework after the webinar for you to look at. But for now, we're going to focus on, I think Anne and I are both putting the slides forward. We're going to focus on essential digital literacy. So if you haven't heard anything about digital literacy before, there are 6 strands. We're going to cover what the 6 strands are in a moment, but one thing to recognise is that it's holistic, that you can't really separate one strand from another. There are also 6 levels, so there's plenty of progression for those starting their journey at entry 1, perhaps entry 2 or entry 3, progressing on to level 1, level 2 and level 3. And the end assessment for the essential digital literacy skill is a controlled task, and then when that has been successfully completed, a structured discussion. we are going to consider that towards the end. Now, we have a quick quiz to see what you know about some of the very common tools. So, when did Facebook start? If you can use your pen tool and mark the year you believe Facebook started. When did it come onto our devices, our screens? We've got a few people with a couple of different answers there. We've got 1996, 1998. A few people saying 2002. Quite a number of you saying 2004, and a couple, or one saying 2006. Well done if you said 2004. Facebook did arrive on our devices in 2004. That is only 12 years ago. Now, if like me, you've been teaching for longer than 12 years, you will remember a time when Facebook was not in the classroom, and therefore some of the issues that come alongside Facebook, such as cyberbullying, inappropriate posts, they weren't in existence then either. We didn't have to think about them. But now there are over 1 billion active users per month using Facebook. So well done if you got that right. Let's see how good you are with Twitter. When did Twitter start? So was that before Facebook? Was that after Facebook? If you've gone straight in for 2006, well, I tell you what, there's no, well, okay, you are all correct. It was 2006. Well, and in fact, there are 313 million active users. Now, are you a user? Anne and I are using Twitter. Anne often gets lost in Twitter. And it's very easy to do, but actually for CPD and to connect with other teachers, other ACL tutors, other work-based learning tutors, it is the place to be. Let's move you on. So, Instagram. Have you heard of Instagram? Are you on Instagram? When did the Instagram start? Well, some of you are on Google, I think. Some of you have got 2 devices here and are Googling the answers. To be honest, that's what I would be doing. But well done. If you said 2010 and you didn't even need to Google it, you're right. Instagram, a place where you can post photos, you can follow celebrities. Quite a number of our young people using Instagram these days. In fact, there's over 300 million users. So if we think of these large numbers, people are actually using these tools. Are we using them and are we considering them in our teaching? I'm going to move you on. Now, this next slide, there's not a word there. So the first question is, what is this app? Some of you have decided to guess at the answer. Can anybody type in the chat pane? Snapchat. Well done, Karen Roberts. Round of applause for all of you. Well done. Snapchat. So some of you are using Snapchat. And when did Snapchat start? Well, yes, you've got it. 2011. You're very good at this. 2011, and there are only over 10 million active daily users in the UK alone. 10 million people every day in the UK using Snapchat. If you don't know what Snapchat is, Snapchat is a messaging app where you can post pictures, short videos, and the idea is that it gets virtually shredded after a few seconds. So, last question to get us into the interactive digital literacy mode. Okay, I'll let you know what this is. This is WhatsApp. So when did WhatsApp start? Oh, we've got a bit of disagreement on this one, but yeah, it's certainly one of the later apps. So yeah, you're right to be going later on a little bit. It's in fact 2010, and that over 1 billion users, and in fact was acquired in 2014. And if you don't use WhatsApp, it's a messaging app. Because it's used over the internet, you can send photos without going into any text messages and any costs. You've only got the data charges, but you can actually set up WhatsApp groups, and we're going to talk to Michelle a little bit later about how to set up a WhatsApp group and what she uses it for. So well done, all of those that got those right. Did you get 100%? Maybe test you again later if we've got time. So in front of you now, you have a screen showing you the 6 strands of digital literacy. We have responsibility, productivity, information literacy, collaboration, creativity, and learning. Now, I'd just like you to mark when you hear the strand that I am reading out. So the first strand, this is the choice of device, tool, and how to share or save your work. So which strand am I describing there? You have a choice of device and tool and how to save. Oh, a few of you have gone for like collaboration. It's not collaboration. I'll put you out of your misery. It's product, oh, well done. Some of you had it. It's productivity. Thinking about which device I'm going to use. I think I got there with the sharing of work, but that's giving permissions. Okay, so this is about searching online with consideration of copyright. Yeah, we've got lots of different colours here. Yeah, information literacy. We're not going to spend a long time on this. I think you're just ticking them all now. This next one is about learning in a safe and secure environment. Yeah, responsibility. This is about working with others online. I mean, that's collaboration, but some of you have already marked collaboration. This is about thinking about creativity. The clues in the question there. Creativity and digital learning is the last one, and this is about reflecting. But I think you were fairly good at marking those. So well done for joining in. We'll move on to consider each strand in more detail. Okay, we're having a little bit of a technical hitch. Oh, we're moving on quite quickly. We're not going through them that quickly. There we go. We're absolutely fine. Our internet was working a little slower than when we were. So in front of you, you have some keys with some words or some symbols on. So what do you think these are? Okay, we've lost the slide. Okay, we're having a few technical hitches here in Neath Talbot at the moment, but our slides seem to be working on their own. In front of you are the keys. Well done, Carl. They are passwords. In fact, they're not very strong passwords. You're right, Kerry. In fact, they're part of the top 25 passwords that people are still using, and included in that list is password and some other common QWERTY, UIOP. Now, at entry level, we need to consider what a strong password looks like, and we need to make sure how a password can be remembered. But I think what we need to consider ourselves is that we all know we need a strong password. We all know we shouldn't share our passwords, and we all know that it's a good idea to change passwords and in fact have different passwords for different sites. However, and no answers in the chat pane here, how many of us actually do that? It's one thing to know what we need to do, it's another to actually be doing it. Well done, Melinda, you do. Thank you. One activity that you can use to help your learners is adapted from something on Google's Digital Literacy and Citizenship course. Anne will put the link in to this course. If you've not seen it before, there's lots of activities. There are some videos. They are focused towards a younger audience, but you can use them and they are definitely worth considering. One of the activities to gain a strong password is think of a fun sentence that you can remember, such as a favourite song title, a book title. I, for example, thought about The Very Hungry Caterpillar, my favourite book as a child by Eric Carle, and then just choose the first letters, changing some of the letters to symbols, and some letters uppercase, some letters lowercase. And from The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, I could come up with a password, which is shown there, lowercase T, uppercase V, lowercase h, C, 3, uppercase C. Now, don't worry, that is not my password on any of my accounts or my email or anywhere. So you haven't got any of my passwords, but this is actually quite a nice activity that I know Michelle was planning to use with some of her learners as well. So if anybody else has got any ideas about how you can teach strong passwords, how to remember them, please share them in the chat pane, because today's webinar is all about sharing our ideas with each other. Moving on now to being and staying safe online. This is becoming more and more important because we do need to consider how much information we want to share and how we're going to manage our privacy settings. We have a short video clip that we'd like to show you just to see that just by liking a page on the internet, how much information can be shared. So sit back and watch this short video.
hot chocolate.
What's the name?
Joelle.
What was the name?
Alex.
Alex. There you go, Johnny.
Cheers.
If you like our Facebook page, we give you a free hot drink and a free pastry.
We have a new light for Damien. We have a new light for Damien.
Hey, Carly, are you standing by?
Standing by. Hi there, can I help?
Yeah. Just liked your Facebook page.
Okay, I'll search Facebook
I'm
now.
searching Google.
Have a phone number.
I've got his email address.
Okay, Carly, are you ready?
For information on Damien.
Yep, I am.
Mother's maiden name is he banks with
Carly, this is the girl coming in now with the blue scarf.
What's the name? Nicholas.
Nicholas. His date of birth, 7th of May. She lives at 38A.
Just be a couple of seconds.
2 children, age 4 and 6. Previous address. She's got the postcode.
Yep, got it. Damien, age 26 and a fitness instructor.
How do you know that?
Brody, who goes to UCL. Martin, who went to South Thames College. Assistant psychologist at Great Ormond Street.
How did you know?
That is... I don't really understand.
Oh, pardon?
You know I'm a Christian as well.
Oh, yeah, we know everything about you, Martin. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Anna from Russia.
Yes, Claire, all the resources that we've got here today, Anne's put a link in for you. So that a link to the YouTube video so that you can access it yourself. I'm just going to go back to it. It is a very good video that does illustrate the point, and I think what people don't realise is just how extensive their digital footprint is, and it is one thing that we do need to be working on with our young people and our adults. And if you have any other ideas of activities, please put them in the chat pane because we will share this with other people. So moving on again, we need to be aware that learners and ourselves that anything we post online has the potential to be permanent. If you've just got one friend or follower or contact that you don't know or trust 100%, then anything you do say online is not private. We do need to be mindful that even people we know and trust may not always respond to our online posts in the way we intend them to. Take the post in front of you. Is this genuine? Or is it a bit of a sarcastic joke? Mark which one you think it is. Thought that presentation went down well with the boss, exclamation mark, winky face. So if you can use your pen tool and mark whether you think this is a genuine or a sarcastic status. Okay, we've got quite a few going for sarcastic. Nobody thinking, oh, we got somebody thinking it's genuine. Okay, I think what we can say from this, smug, you think it's a smug status, could be quite smug, but I think what we can definitely say from this that none of us can agree, whether it is genuine, whether it is sarcastic. But imagine you are the recipient of that message, and if you've read it as sarcastic, even though it wasn't meant, it perhaps was meant very genuinely, but you read it as sarcastic and respond in a negative way, you can imagine what happens, and you can imagine how something small can escalate very, very quickly. What we do need to remember that if it is open to interpretation, it is open to misinterpretation. And I think back to your last posts online. Were they clear? Were they open to misinterpretation? And I think that's something that we need to consider with our learners as well. I think we have a few people with some technical issues. Can you just give me a smiley face if you're still with us and you're able to see the screen and you're able to hear us? If you could just use an emoticon and show us with a smiley face that we've still got people with us in the webinar. Thank you. I can see that we've still got some, so we'll go and hope that the others can join us very soon. Okay, moving on to digital productivity. So this is about choosing the technology, which is the device, choosing the tool, which is the application or software, but most importantly, the technique, how you will use it. Those are the 3 T's, the technology, the tools, and the techniques, the most important of which is the technique. So for example, if you want to make a short video of an activity, you'd probably use a smartphone or a tablet rather than a laptop or a desktop PC. But if you've got a long report or a spreadsheet to create, you'd probably want to use your laptop or your PC because the functionality of some of the online apps on a tablet are not as full as they are on the desktop machine. It's also important to remember, particularly in ACL and in work-based learning and in some FE classes, that your choices will be restricted depending on where you are and what's available. But in the words of Bananarama, it's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. So it's about using the resources that you have in the best way that you have available. So even if you have limited choices, it's making the best of those. Okay, apparently I've got a bit of an echo. Is anybody else hearing an echo, or is the sound okay? If you could just let us know in the chat pane. We're okay. Okay, so just moving on very quickly about sharing and permission. So again, with productivity, once you have decided to share, you have to decide whether you're going to use a cloud-based device. If you are saving to the cloud, maybe Google Drive or OneDrive or Office 365, you have 3 different ways that you can save your work. You can and share your work. You can share it with other people with a view-only access, where other people can only see the content. You can share it where other people can see your content and can also comment, or you can give full editing rights, and that means that somebody else has the same rights as you do with your document. One note of caution there, that means somebody else could potentially delete or completely remove your work from you. So you just need to be careful who you're giving those permissions to. We're going to move on to the next strand, digital information literacy. So at entry level, this may be considering how to conduct searches using keywords. It may lead on to key phrases or how to restrict your search. So one example of ways you can do a refined or a restricted search, and Anne will put the link into the chat pane now, is using a Google Advanced Search, where you can narrow down a search by finding web pages which include or indeed don't include specific terms. You can then narrow down by language, which is quite good if you're searching for Welsh language resources, or within a time frame. So you can narrow the search to certain domains or document types, which is very useful for research and something that lots of learners aren't aware of. So it might be something that an activity that you want to do with your learners is looking at Google Advanced Search and what results that they can come up. Yes, Karen, I agree. It's good to get students to look at their privacy settings on their own social media accounts. Very often they don't realise that their digital footprint extends to photos and videos that they've just been tagged in, not necessarily ones that they've posted. So, back to you. In front of you, we're going to consider how reliable sources are. So in front of you, you should be able to see, if you can indeed see the screen, 2 websites. On the left-hand side, we have Dog Island. And again, on here, you can see some information about islands that dogs can go and live on. And you can see that there are some a well-known hotel brand advertising. And on the right-hand side, we've got some dangers associated with dihydrogen monoxide, DHMO, and listed some dangers. So I'd just like you to think about which one of these sites do you think is a hoax site? Which one of these websites is not real? Anne, you had some thoughts about this.
Well, to start with, it looked really interesting. You couldn't really tell. I mean, the Dog Island could be somewhere, and I could see Karen taking both her dogs to Dog Island and letting them go, maybe.
You have to leave them there forever.
Oh, maybe not. But the other side looks really quite technical and looks quite convincing. I don't know what dihydrogen monoxide is, because I'm not a chemist, really. My daughter would know. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I'm not sure at all, Karen.
Well, we've got a few ticks for Dog Island. So some of you think that there is actually a dog island that you can send dogs to live on their own forever to be free. But there's quite a lot that think the one on the right-hand side. But Peter Townend, yes, the answer has gone to you. They are both hoax websites. But actually, there's lots about these websites that make them look real. You can find out lots of information. You can follow links. But there are lots of other websites that are created just like this for education. just to prove and just to look at and open up a discussion about how reliable sources are. Because in fact, did anybody work out what dihydrogen monoxide was? Answer in the chat pane if you have worked out what dihydrogen monoxide is. Water. Oh, well done, colleague Ceredigion. You didn't let us down. It is actually water. So those dangers are actually dangers associated with waters. But we've got a link that Anne will put into the chat pane now where you can find many of these hoax websites, again, just to use to open up discussion about reliability of sources and what you would look for in a website to find out whether it's reliable or not. One way you can have a reminder of how to do this is to use one of these acronyms. On the left-hand side, we've got RU, relevant, up-to-date, reliable, and useful. And on the right-hand side, we have CRAAP. I'm not sure which one you would think is the most memorable. But when we're looking at the currency, so when was the information published? Do the links work? Looking at reliability and relevance. Does the information relate to the topic or answer the question that you were searching for? For the authority, who is the author? Is the web address something like .gov, which is a government website, or .ac.uk, an academic website? Is the information accurate? Where is it from? Are there other websites that will verify the information? And what's the purpose of the information? And is there a bias? Has someone sponsored the site? Do they want you to, is it fact or is it opinion? So if you've got any other ideas of how you can incorporate digital information literacy into your sessions, please put them into the chat pane because we are looking for this to be a sharing webinar as well, so we can pick up some of your ideas to share across Wales too. So moving on to, oh, I've missed out one, Creative Commons. This is just a very quick reminder. I'm not going to stay long on here, but just because you do a Google search for an image doesn't mean that you can actually use the image that turns up in the results page. One way you can share images and other media safely is under a Creative Commons license. We're going to put a link to creativecommons.org, and this is a way that you can share or share alike, and people can put licenses to their own work. And we've got websites like Flickr, YouTube, Wikipedia, and Vimeo all using Creative Commons licenses, so users can license their own work. Pixabay is where I've got many of the images for this webinar and indeed for many of the presentations. They are copyright-free images, so you don't just have to use images that turn up in a Google search. Moving on to digital collaboration, what I'd like you to do is have a look at some of these icons on the slide in front of you. Do you recognize any of these? If you do, can you put a mark on the app that you recognize? And then can you let us know how you use that with your learners in the chat pane? So I think these are, we've got picked some very popular applications. So we've got in the top left-hand corner Padlet, we've got Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, we've got Today's Meet, and we've got WhatsApp. And I think they are obviously proven very popular across Wales because we've got many, many marked on those. So just to take you through quickly, if you've never seen Padlet before, I'm not going to spend very long because you can look at padlet.com and try out this app yourself. This is a very visual way to collect resources together, to put ideas down. You can see I can put links to videos, you can put files onto Padlet. Google Slides is an alternative to PowerPoint. It's a presentation tool that you can actually collaborate in real time, and you can give people permissions, viewing, commenting, or actually editing with you in real time, so you can both work together. Today's Meet. Michelle, you use Today's Meet with your learners in childcare. Can you tell us how you use Today's Meet?
Well, I use Today's Meet quite often in the classroom. It allows learners who have little confidence to speak in class to express and share ideas using this tool. Some learners can be nervous speaking in front of a whole class, so that we use the collaborative tools such as Padlet and Today's Meet. This has allowed learners to work together and gain more confidence. Childcare learners who are slower to make notes are able to go back through the room to catch notes they have missed. It allows communication and collaboration without time and space limit. The resources are always available to the learners at any time or any place. The learners really work well with it. As a tutor, I have found the tools we use to share and collaborate very effective. I am able to share resources with the class more easily rather than sending them out individually. After each class, I put on today's meet, the work covered in the lesson. This then allows any learners who've missed class to catch up. This has been working very well. All learners submit their files at the end of each unit with all the work completed in time.
Thank you, Michelle. And I can see some people are agreeing with you in the chat pane that they collect resources and drop hyperlinks into today's meet too. And we've got Socrative, which is an online quiz. So thank you for sharing your ideas as well. And again, WhatsApp. Michelle, you use WhatsApp with your learners. This is the messaging app.
Yes, this was one of the learners' idea. She's more confident in using digital literacy and the tools. So she sort of suggested setting up the app, and myself and the learners are all in this group, and we send links, we share links to resources. I put links up to today's meet and Padlet, so those then not in class can access the today's meet room. Last week, learners were taking photos of work we had done and put it onto the WhatsApp group for learners that were not there that day. So it's working really well.
Excellent. And I can see that other people are sharing their ideas in the chat pane as well, of ways that they use collaborative tools. Class OneNote definitely is very good for collaborative work. And if you have Office 365 in your organisation, that's a very good way of sharing work and also gathering assignment work. And Padlet is an exit ticket. If anyone needs to ask questions before they leave, then they can review that the next session. So lots of good ideas, and keep them coming because we will share the chat pane so that everybody can benefit from these ideas. So we're going to move on to digital creativity. And really with creativity, this is about allowing learners to be creative in the tools that they choose to use within the limitations of what is available to them. But what I want to do is share with you a video that's been very kindly donated to us by Fleur, who I believe is in the chat pane with us, that a group of her learners have actually put together to show us how they've used QR codes. So we're going to share that video with you now.
The fictional something student here to tell you about QR.
Hello, I am James. Today I'm going to tell you what a QR is. QR, may you ask? QR stands for Quick Response. It is a barcode which holds information. Today we did a quiz on QR. Here is a picture of us mighty specimens doing a quiz.
We scanned the QR code with our iPad.
You can find out lots of information from QR. The barcodes can be found on a range of different items, such as
McDonald's chocolate bar.
Cereal packets.
It's great fun! Visual calls help with instructions.
Activities on iPad help me to learn.
Handouts are boring.
iPad make learning fun.
Other brands are available.
Thank you again to Fleur and her learners for sharing that video with us, showing us just how creative you can be using an app called Adobe Spark Video. Very simple to use. If you've not had a look at it, have a look at Adobe Spark Video and use that with your learners. So thanks again, Fleur, and I can see that there are some people thanking you. If there are any creative tools that you've been using with your learners, I know Jo was speaking to us earlier about using Book Creator for designing books with some of her literacy learners, but please tell us what other tools you use in your digital creativity. The final strand that we're going to consider this afternoon is digital learning, and this is the opportunity to become reflective learners and reflect on the learning that has taken place. It's also a chance to think about how else might you use your digital skills to learn? What other ways do you do that? So could you just note in the chat pane, how do you get your learners to reflect? Do you get your learners to reflect? What tools and what methods could they use to reflect on their learning? Well, thank you, Jane. You talked about using QR codes to set quizzes and links to websites. QR codes are a great resource, one that we've not had time to go into in great depth today, but thanks to Fleur's learners, we've heard a little bit about them. So different ways that you can reflect. Audio comment, yeah, definitely. Recording some reflections just after a session or during a session. That's a great way. Thank you, Jeff. And alongside audio comments, you can also have blogs and vlogs. Be Funky is good for photo editing. Oh, thank you, Karen. There's a link there for photo editing, which is good fun. And we want things to be fun in digital learning, so thank you. An online journal, yes, Mary. Inspiration for mind mapping, so that's another great tool, taking photos and videos. So there's lots of ideas here for how to reflect on your learning. Now, if we just put this back into the context of the controlled task, digital learning is assessed using the structured discussion, and there's been a slight change over the summer based on the feedback from centres that the structured discussion doesn't have to be one-to-one now. It can be with small groups of up to 4 candidates. You can still have it individual if that's more appropriate, but the control task must be successfully completed before the structured discussion takes place. One thing that we're not going to have time to go into today is that preparation is key, both for the learners, but also for the assessors. What are you expecting your learners to say? But perhaps that's time for another webinar. I think we've got lots and lots of comments here about making scrapbooks using Yammer. Keep your comments coming. We will come back to them. But just very, very briefly, the control task. Because we said we put this into the context of the control task. If you've not delivered a control task yet, at entry level, your learners, at all entry levels, your learners will have 6 hours. At level 1, they will have 4 hours. At level 2, 5 hours. And at level 3, up to 8 hours. The complexity increases, but generally learners will have to set up a filing structure. They'll have to complete some independent research. They will need to collaborate with others. They'll need to create a resource, and then they'll need to save and perhaps share that resource. What is important is you need this period of teaching and learning, and all the comments that we've had have been related to the teaching and learning, this holistic digital literacy, where although the strands are very separate, they all relate very closely to each other. So you could have blended learning. If you're in the workplace or in ACL, you can have some face-to-face to cover all 6 strands so that your learners are in a position to sit their controlled task. Some other resources that have been mentioned and some that haven't been mentioned, Kahootic quiz. Padlet is another mind mapping tool, and this one that you can use to collaborate. Mentimeter, this is a great online poll where you can ask learners to put in results, and you can generate word clouds or have multiple choice questions. But one place that, if you haven't seen, the top 100 tools for workplace learning, Anne's going to pop a link into the chat pane. If you've not had a look through these tools, some of them have been mentioned today. Please have a look at the top 100 tools for workplace learning. If you've not looked on the Hub site, there's lots of e-safety and digital responsibility resources on the Hub website. So these are just some places for you to look if you've not had a chance later. This has been the quickest 45 minutes that possibly we've had this year. We had quite a lot of information for you, and you've joined in, and you've been absolutely great taking part and interacting with us throughout the last 45 minutes. But really, what's next? What would you like to have in your CPD webinars. This is a network that we'd like to encourage you to join. I know when we've been working on an additional learning needs project, we've had quite a webinar community develop over time, over a few months. So if there's anything that you'd like to see in a webinar, if you'd like us to go into more depth into digital literacy, into one or other of the strands, or perhaps you'd like us to consider application of number or communication, please let us know. Anne is going to just pop in a link now to an evaluation form, and that's how you can let us know. Have you enjoyed today? Perhaps you haven't enjoyed today. Let us know either way. But we'd just like to say diolch to Michelle and to Joe and to everybody at Neath Port Talbot ACL for hosting us today. Diolch to everybody who has joined in the webinar. We've had 51 participants today. It's been a record number, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be with you in the webinar today. When you have the link to the webinar, if you could click the link and fill in the Google form, we would very much appreciate it. But if you could just show your appreciation to Michelle, to Joe, and to Fleur and her learners on the video by using the emoticon, give us a round of applause or a smiley face for Michelle and Joe. I think it's their first webinar as well, and I know there were some nerves in the room before we started, and they weren't just belonging to Joe and Michelle. So if you can click the link, I don't know if Anne, you could repost the link again because it's probably gone further up the chat pane. We will be ending the meeting shortly, just to give you enough time to click on the hyperlink. Thank you very much.
And for me, can I just also say thank you very, very much to all of you for listening, to Karen for running this first webinar, ACL webinar, with these record numbers of people attending. To Joe and to Michelle, thank you very much, and for your warmth and hospitality. And for me also to wish you all a very, very happy Christmas from both of us. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next year. Diolch yn fawr.